But what if I told you that the money in your pocket stopped being real long before you were born? Not fake as in counterfeit, but fake as in detached from anything solid, anything measurable, anything that actually exists in the physical world. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a glitch. It was a single moment in history when world leaders quietly agreed to turn paper into power and power into obligation, while the rest of humanity carried on, convinced that the bills they held had value. Today, every swipe, every transaction, every currency is built on that moment. A moment almost no one questions, a moment where money became an illusion, and the illusion became the system. But how did this happen? Who made the decision? And why, decades later, is the world drowning in debt that can never truly be paid back? Let's rewind, because the truth is older, stranger, and far more deliberate than you've ever been told. Before money lost its anchor, money was real. Not just psychologically real, physically real. A dollar wasn't just a symbol. It was a receipt for something tangible, gold. For centuries, economies ran on metals because metals couldn't be conjured out of thin air. Gold had to be mined, silver had to be earned. The supply grew slowly, naturally, predictably, and because of that, governments were limited. They couldn't overspend. They couldn't inflate the currency. They couldn't create wealth with a printing press. But that limitation was a problem, especially during wars, recessions, and political pressure. Leaders wanted flexibility. They wanted liquidity. Above all, they wanted control. The seeds of today's illusion were planted not in chaos, but in the desire for unlimited money. Enter central banks. By the early 1900s, nations began shifting away from pure metal money toward centralized paper promises issued by banks. But these promises were still backed by golden paper, at least the illusion hadn't fully formed yet. Not until one event changed everything. After World War II, global leaders met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, their goal to build a new world financial order. The result was the Bretton Woods system, a framework that made the US dollar the center of the global economy. Other countries pegged their currencies to the dollar, and the dollar itself was pegged to gold. It seemed stable, it seemed fair, it seemed logical, but there was a hidden flaw, one that economists warned about, but politicians ignored. In this new system, foreign countries held massive amounts of US dollars in reserve. But the US did not have enough gold to back all those dollars if everyone asked for redemption at once. It was a ticking time bomb, a global trust system with a single point of failure: the illusion that the US would always have enough gold. As the US printed more money to fund wars and domestic programs, foreign nations began to notice the imbalance. They saw that the US was spending more gold-backed dollars than it had gold to redeem. France, led by Charles de Gaulle, called the bluff. He demanded US gold in exchange for US dollars as the system allowed. And that's when cracks formed. If other countries followed France, the US gold reserves would collapse. The whole global system would unravel. A decision had to be made, one that would permanently reshape money itself. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon went on television.com Voice. Plain words. No hint that what he was about to say would alter the future of every economy on Earth. He announced that the US would temporarily suspend the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Temporarily, a word that carried more weight than anyone realized. With a single sentence, Nixon severed the link between the dollar and gold, a link the entire world relied on, and just like that, the dollar was no longer a promise, it was a policy. Money became whatever governments said it was. Its supply no longer depended on nature or scarcity, but on political decisions and central bank strategies. The illusion had begun. That temporary suspension, it was never reversed. Not once, not by any administration, not by any global coalition. 1971 became year zero of the world's new financial reality, fiat currency money backed by nothing but belief. Once governments realized they could print without restraint, the rules of economics shifted overnight. Debt exploded. Inflation became permanent. Speculation became profitable, and the gap between rich and poor widened at a rate never seen in human history. Because when money can be created endlessly, the people closest to the printing press benefit the most. Banks, governments, large corporations. Meanwhile, everyday workers paid in that same diluted currency lost purchasing power year after year. From 1971 onward, global debt grew over 1,000%, housing prices skyrocketed, far beyond wages, the cost of education, healthcare, and living soared. Wealth inequality hit levels not seen since the 1800s. Currencies lost 90% plus of their value over several decades. The illusion was working exactly as designed. Money became a tool of policy, not a store of value. A mechanism for control, not stability. But the system wasn't done breaking. Every crisis since 1971 has been met with the same solution. Print more money. 1980s inflation. Print 1990s bond crises. Print 2008 collapse. Print 2020 lockdown recession. Print at record-breaking levels. These fixes created short-term relief and long-term dependence. Each bailout required more money than the last. Each rescue weakened the foundation further. Each emergency revealed how fragile the system truly was, because when money is unlimited, crises become unlimited too. And now the world faces the ultimate paradox. Every nation is drowning in debt, yet the system can't function without creating even more of it. We've reached the stage where the illusion is too big to fail, but also too big to sustain. Look around today. The US national debt grows by over $1 trillion every 100 days. Over 60% of all US dollars ever created were printed within just a few recent years. Global debt has surpassed $300 trillion. Major currencies are losing value faster than ever. People are turning to alternative assets, gold, crypto, land, seeking anything real. The pattern is identical to the lead-up of 1971: excess money, global distrust, imbalances piling up, and political leaders insisting everything is fine. But the illusion is harder to maintain. People are noticing. Countries are questioning the dollar's supremacy. Economists are warning about a reset. Central banks are preparing digital currencies tools that tighten control even further. We are living through the next major turning point. And most people don't even realize the pattern repeating. So, what does all of this mean for you? Here are the 3 takeaways everyone needs to understand. Takeaway number 1. Money is no longer tied to value, only policy. Its worth changes not by nature, but by decisions made behind closed doors. Takeaway number 2. The system requires constant debt to survive. Your loans, your taxes, your inflation aren't accidents, they're features. Takeaway number 3. Every major financial shift begins quietly until it doesn't. When confidence breaks, illusions collapse fast. And here's the warning. The world is approaching another breaking point. It may not look like 1971. It may be digital instead of paper. But the pattern is the same. And the consequences are bigger. If you want to understand what's coming and why the next monetary shift may change everything from savings to sovereignty, then subscribe. Because we're only just beginning to unravel the story behind the system that shapes your entire life. Stay curious, stay aware, and never take the value of money at face value.